Hey everyone, just doing a solo pod today. This is Klint, by the way, on the world's okayest mountain bike podcast. I wanted to do a quick pod just to give you initial impressions, first ride impressions of the new 2024 Vittoria Peyote 29 by 2.4 cross country tire and the new 2024 updated Mezcal XC race tire. So Vittoria sent me a set of each of these, and to be completely honest with you, I thought, okay, well, I even told them, hey, you probably don't need to send me a peyote. I doubt I'm ever going to use it. I'm not that hardcore of cross country, and that thing looks like a slick down the middle. But they said, well, they're already in the mail, so try them anyway. Now, keep in mind, they sent me tires to test, but Vittoria doesn't sponsor me. Doesn't sponsor the podcast, really. I don't get discounts from them, even nothing like that. So what I expected was, okay, they sent me a set. I'm going to try it at least on the rear. And then after I do my one ride on them, probably I'll take it off, put the Mezcal on. That is not the plan anymore. So today I went to Steelville Bike Park in Steelville, Missouri, and for those of you who've ridden there know it gets pretty gravelly. It's probably not what they really designed that tire for. They designed it more for hard pack dirt. So loose gravel. Now today there was some moisture. It had rained a couple days ago, so it wasn't as loose as it can be. But I was still expecting a scary day. But I needed somewhere smooth to ride because I've got a messed up pinky. I can't really hang on, or I would have been at Shepherd Mountain at the Enduro. And I was very pleasantly surprised. I was actually kind of shocked at how not sketchy these tires were. I had been riding on my Trance Specialized Ground Control tires, the T7. I thought there was no way these were going to even be anywhere in that category for confidence. And I was shocked at how well I got along with them. Doing all the jumps, traction. So I'll divide it up in a couple things. First thing, roll speed. I've done some pavement rides on these and then the ride on actual trails today. I like doing pavement rides to test roll speed because it's consistent. You do it every time. These are definitely the fastest rolling tires I've ever had. You take one look at that peyote. Down the center, I'd say you've got about a center, maybe a 10 millimeters, that the tread that's there is like a V-shaped, just lines of tread, not knobbies. The Mezcal down the center has a almost unbroken center line of tread with just a few tiny gaps that basically be smooth. So rolling on hardpack and on pavement and stuff, they're easily the fastest rolling tires I've ever had on a mountain bike. On the trail, seemed to be the same thing. It was kind of hard to tell today just because it was a little softer than usual. Certainly wasn't giving anything up there. So if they say they're their fastest rolling tires to date, I believe it. There's no reason not to. But what I was surprised at was, first of all, climbing traction. I kind of expected to be spinning out over every rock, every little pebble, and that just was not the case at all. And I was even running higher pressures than really you would want to on a tire like this. I mean, I weigh almost 200 pounds before I get all my gear on. And I was at a trail that has a lot of jumps. So even though I have an insert in the rear, I think I have a minesweeper in the rear and a tire invader in the front. They're very light inserts, but I still wanted to run them because that's what I'd been running just for consistency's sake. I was running like 27 PSI rear, 23 front. Might have gone up a little as the day went on. Now, if I was actually going on a real cross-country trail ride, like at Berryman Trail, the Ozark Trail, somewhere like that, I'd probably run 25 rear, 20 to 21 in the front. But even with that extra pressure, I guess Vittoria says that they're philosophy on these tires. They've gone with a more of a thicker TPI on the sidewall. They're using 60 TPI threads, so they're a little thicker, a little stiffer of a sidewall. And then they've gotten more compliance out of the actual tread compound, so it deforms easier, but it's not really sticky. Sometimes you get new tires or whatever, you roll through gravel or on the road, and you can like hear it's almost like glue, like that stickiness. These are not like that, but I think they deform. Maybe they're a little softer without being sticky, if that makes sense. Where I didn't have any weird kind of shroud off things like I've had with even the ground controls every once in a while kind of shock me with you get that unexpected spin off a root or something. It's kind of a zoop. Didn't have any of that with these. And I climbed up some steep trails over by Surf's Up. Climbed up the trail that leads to that. Is very steep. And then I actually went backwards up the steepest part of this trail where they have a bunch of telephone poles down. It's kind of like whoops down the trail. It's actually pretty fun. It sounds dumb, but it's really fun. But I climbed up the steepest part of that, which is very, very steep. It's loose. I thought there's no way I'm going to be spinning out. There's no chance that I'm going to make it up with this tire. And I did totally fine. Totally fine. Didn't spin any more than I usually do with an enduro tire. Now, would I if it was wet roots, whatever? Probably. But you think on a hard surface, like a tree root or a rock, knobbies do not do you any good, wet or dry. Knobbies dig into dirt or maybe through loose rocks, but over a tree root, over a rock, knobbies aren't going to help. And I think if you look at the way this tire is, next to the center, it's kind of a V-shaped tread like the Van Halen logo. There's just little strips. I wouldn't even call them knobbies. It's just raised rubber, kind of like the middle of a Maxxis Aspen. I think that stuff folds over. It's very compliant, gives good traction. And then I realized when I'm braking, if you lock up the brakes, if you think about where the tread of your tire is on the bottom of the tire going forward, if you lock the brakes up, you're sliding against the open end of a V-shape lines of rubber. And yeah, I definitely skidded some, maybe a little more than I would have, but I fully expected this to be a terrifying experience, that every time I hit the brakes, especially the rear brake, that it was just going to be immediately, lock up, spin. It was not like that at all. And there's enough side knob to this tire that as soon as you start leaning the bike, it's got grip. It's perfectly acceptable for a cross-country tire. I don't think, the Maxxis Ardent I had a long time ago or the ground control really has much of anything on it as you're leaning it over and engaging the side knobs. So braking wise, as long as you kept your weight in your feet, it was good. No problem there. But I was being more careful. Sure. I mean, I was still riding a little bit hesitant, a little bit expecting, but it was more than enough to have a good time, carry good speed down the trails with ease, do all the jumps easier than normal. There was just one spot on Surf's Up after you do the wood berm drop, the next jump right there. When you land in that transition, it's always loose as a goose. And I was definitely braking more, being very hesitant there. More so than I would be on like my enduro bike with big knobby tires, but even then it still would have been loose. I thought for sure I would be taking this peyote off the back of this, putting the other mezcal they sent me on the back and calling it a day, but that is not what I'm going to do. I'm going to run this until it fails me. I didn't have any failures today. I don't know that, the jury's still kind of out on that, but I feel like there were enough sharp, pointy rocks at Steelville that if it was going to puncture super easily on top, it would have likely happened. Sidewalls, though, there's not really anywhere at Steelville that's likely to get a sidewall, so I'm not 100% sure if those are going to be tough enough. But given that they're 60 TPI, not 120, or the Maxxis race version's like 170, like really fine threads. I have hope that these are going to hold up. Now the Mezcal up front, I've never ran a Mezcal. I ran the Sierra, downcountry tire back when they first came out with it. I think I'm more confident on this new Mezcal than I was the Sierra, because the Sierra, the knobbies seemed so hard that they just would slide off anything smooth or wet. I think there's more compliance in these Mezcal knobs on this new tire. I didn't feel like I was really losing much compared to a ground control. Maybe a brand new ground. I feel like the new Mezcal is on par with a somewhat worn ground control as far as cornering confidence and everything. Even though they're 2.4s, they don't seem quite as voluminous as my ground controls did. Those definitely look a little wider, a little more balloony than these. These still have a very round profile for fast rolling, but more than acceptable enough leaning over. Sorry about that if you all heard. My phone just rang. Anyway, what I was saying is more than acceptable enough for me for the intended riding that I'm doing. And I like to still go pretty fast down hills. And boy, I sure did like the less drag, not having to use as many watts to get up the hills. But again, shockingly impressed, even running 27 TPI, climbing up gravel roads. It's just super steep, loose, gravelly trails, and not spinning out. It was kind of shocking. So that would be my quick review. If I could summarize the new Peyote in one sentence, it would be shockingly good traction for how it looks. Like maybe to some of you who ride cross country tires more, you won't think that. But for me, from what I was expecting, much better traction than I was expecting. Of course, it rolls like a road tire, in comparison to most of the stuff I ride. And so it's staying on the bike until it lets me down. And if it lets me down, I'll let you all know, and I'll let you know what the situation was. But I can't wait to get it out, maybe for a full Berryman loop. We're expecting a baby any day now, so I'm probably not going to venture out to where I don't have cell service anytime until that happens and everything's good with the new baby, and somebody's grandmas are maybe hanging out or something where I could get away and put more miles on it, where I might get a puncture. But so far, so good. Mezcal, a lot of people run that, so you know what to expect. I think you'll be happy with the new compound on it. Might give you a little more confidence than the old one. And yeah, that's my quick solo review. I'll get a long-term review later, but really a first ride impression of the new 2024 Vittoria, Peyote, and Mezcal cross-country race tires.